How's it going, guys? My name is Scott. Welcome to my brand new channel, Williams Builds. On this channel we're going to be focusing on what is my passion. My passion is cars. Ever since I can remember, I've been interested in cars. I've always wanted to fix cars, wanted to repair cars, or make cars better. I've done loads of cars over the years, but I've never documented it before. I'm not a trained mechanic. I've never had any official training. But now I want to document the rebuilds with the help of my two sons, Ryan and Reese. So we're going to do it right here, at home, in my drive. We'll take damaged cars, we'll take broken cars, we'll rebuild them, we'll make them better. So to get started, let's go see what we've got. So here is my accident damaged 2017 BMW M140i. It looks as though it's been in a bit of a whack with another car due to the tyre marks down the side, but overall the damage doesn't look too bad. A nice easy one to get started with and maybe do a few mods along the way. I just love that Valencia orange colour. Main damage appears to be right on the front corner, with the damage extending onto the driver's door. The bonnet still does look to be sitting relatively straight on the passenger side, so I think the damage is limited to the front right. It does unfortunately have LED headlights as standard, so I imagine they will be expensive compared to the normal headlights. Both the driver and passenger airbags are blown, and that has caused some damage to the dashboard, so unfortunately we'll have to replace the whole dash, which is a job I've never done before. Amazingly though, it does look as though it hasn't broken the windscreen, which is a bit of a bonus. The overall condition of the car looks really clean. It only has 41,000 miles in it. It looks like it's been well looked after. We'll have to check for suspension damage, but we can do that later. Let's get started. So when you first turn the ignition on, it comes up with all sorts of alarms. Unsurprisingly, most of them seem to be linked to the accident. It's got service due, which was around about the time it was serviced. It's got restraint system alarms, driver restraint system, passenger restraint system, fuel reserve, which is pretty standard from Copart. And if we go into the iDrive system, once we try and clear it, we go to vehicle information, vehicle status, and we go down and check the control. It comes up with restraint system, driver restraint system, passenger restraint system, remote control replace batteries, and unsurprisingly, side daytime lights fault. That'll be due to that smashed headlight. Now we're going to try and start the car, see how that sounds. Sounds alright. Well, it certainly sounds as though it's running fine. It's not making any weird noises, and there's certainly no smoke coming from the car. Under the bonnet doesn't seem to be too bad. It doesn't seem to be too much damage. The structure of the car certainly looks straight. The slam panel looks straight enough. Biggest bit seems to be the damage to the brackets that hold the wing on. I'm sure we'll be able to get some of them. Obviously the headlights are LED headlights. I think that's going to be really expensive, but we'll find out. We'll have a look when we're going to try and buy them. Where are we got to start on, Ryan?
We've got to start by taking off the broken bits.
Okay. I think we'll start with that. So putting the video on a bit of time lapse, we will start by jacking the car up and removing the front wheel in order to gain access to inside the arch liner. We do have a quick check of the wheel here just to make sure it's not buckled, and it looks okay initially. Now removing the damaged arch liner. It's held on with a lot of little 8mm bolts, so just start by removing them, and then once we get that out we'll just chuck the arch liner to the side. This arch liner is actually beyond repair, so we'll have a look for one of them on the internet in a little while. I think for this build we will mainly have a look on eBay, try and get some second hand parts. We will try and get panels in the correct colour to try and cut costs where possible. We will try and also stick to OEM parts. Next up is removing the front wing. It does have mainly 10mm bolts along the top. There is a little trim along the top which I'm removing with a trim tool here, and then that allows me access into 2 more bolts to allow the removal at the top of the front wing. Once the top wing bolts are removed, we can move on to looking for some of the other bolts that are holding it on. I'm sure it's not just held on at the top. There is a little bolt actually in behind the door here, so with the door open we can access that one. There are 2 8mm bolts at the front of the wing here, and then I had to pull the side skirt back slightly to access one last 10mm bolt. Once that bolt's removed, it allows me just to lift the front wing away from the car. Next up is the removal of the headlight. There is a couple of Torx bolts at the top that I'm just removing now. And then once they're removed, there is a few small 10mm bolts at behind the headlight. However, they're not actually holding much on at the moment due to the state of the headlight. The headlight is actually split into 3 separate parts, and it almost comes out in 3 separate parts, but just pretty much wires holding it together. Thankfully at this point the bumper's actually broken. It's actually gave me a little bit extra access in to get the headlight out sideways. Just one last wire out and then the headlight is out. Now we're on to removing the bumper. And then take out 5 Torx bolts along the top of the bumper. After this there should only be attached to the front wing on the passenger side, and then there's the bolts along the bottom of the car. So I remove the bolts from the bottom. These are all 8mm. Thankfully the under tray all seems to be in one piece. And at this point I need to get better access, so I'm putting an axle stand under the car and I'm taking it off, moving the jack round the other side, and then I will remove the front wheel from the passenger side as well. This allows me access into the arch liner to get up to the bolts behind the front wing. And at this point the bumper is pretty much only held on by just sitting there and the 2 bolts behind it on the front wing. It was roughly at this point I should have had a better look at the auxiliary radiator on the driver's side because I didn't have it supported, and at this point the bumper actually just falls off, allowing the auxiliary radiator just to fall to the ground. Thankfully I didn't cause any further damage, but I will get that sorted shortly. At this point I somehow lost a little bit of recording because I have actually changed the front headlight bracket here, which is one of the parts I kind of thought that I was going to need up front and changed off camera. I don't know where that footage went, but unfortunately it did disappear. Thankfully it was 3 or 4 bolts and it allowed me to change it. This allowed me to take the auxiliary radiator, put the bracket back in, which I did actually do a little bit of plastic welding off camera as well, just to make it secure again. It really wasn't worth changing it just for a small amount of damage on it, and a couple of little plastic weld pieces allowed me to put it back in. It's also the bottom bracket that was holding it back on, as you can see here, is just a little bit squint there, so I do give it a little bit of straighten here and get it back in place. Again, it's just 2 10mm bolts at the top, and that puts the bracket back roughly where it should go. Now at the top
bolts around, you can actually see that the bottom bracket is actually a little bit bent, so we're going to fix that. Give it a little bend back with low grips again, and we'll see if we can save the bracket rather than having to buy a new one. The whole point of the build here is actually doing it as OEM as possible. However, I don't want to break the bank. I have a budget here. I want it to be done for a price of less than I can get one of these undamaged. A little more leverage with more grips. Get that bracket back exactly where I want it. I'm not changing the bracket just for that. One final bolt back in the bottom. Tightened up the spec. And the auxiliary radiator just clips back in. So, however, you will see the auxiliary radiator does have a slight twist in it. However, it is not leaking. If it does start to leak, I may or may not change it in the future. We'll see how it goes. So that's it for today's video, folks. If you like what you see, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. My camera skills will get better as we go on. Hopefully the videos will get better as we go on as well. We're just starting out here, we're learning as we go. See you in the next video.